Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Champagne and I am the Marketing Campaign Manager here at Enterprise DB. I will be your host today for our webinar, Installing Postgres on Linux. I'm joined by Marc Linster, SVP of Product Development and Support, and Devrim Gündüz, Principal Systems Engineer. Before we get started, I just want to go through a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded. We will be sharing the recording along with the slides after the broadcast. The lines are currently muted. If you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the question panel. Today's session is scheduled for 1 hour. We expect the presentation to last about 50 minutes and will allot any extra time for Q&A. If we do not have time to address all questions, we will follow up afterward with any attendee whose question was not answered. And now, without further ado, here are Marc and Devrim.
All right, thank you, Rachel. So today's webinar, as Rachel said, is a part of our series Pulse of Postgres. That's a series that we do every 2 weeks. It's usually hosted by Bruce Momjen or myself, and then we have team members like Devrim in this case joining us to talk about installing Postgres on Linux. So after this, in 2 weeks, we'll have a webinar about installing Postgres on using containers. After that, we'll do a webinar on installing Postgres on Windows, and then there's going to be other hands-on topics that we will follow with afterwards. If there's any specific suggestions that you have, just please add them into the question box. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to spend just a few minutes, I promise, it's just a few minutes on who is EDB, just to make sure that everybody's grounded about why we're saying some of the things that we're saying today. And then Devrim will talk about why we switched from one-click installers to native packages. That's been a big change for us and our customers over the last couple of years, when we went from one-click installers on Linux to now using native packages for CentOS, RHEL, Debian, Ubuntu, Power on Linux, etc. And then Devrim will walk you through hands-on on how to do the installations using native packages for Postgres and EDB Postgres Advanced Server, and then we'll have time for a bit of a Q&A at the end. Don't be shy with questions. This webinar is for you, and Devrim and I are here to help answer whatever questions we can. Okay, so let me just start with who is EDB. So EDB is really the largest company focused entirely on Postgres today. We've been in business for 15 years. You'll see us in Gartner reports and Forrester reports. I'll emphasize that a little bit. We have over 4,000 customers today globally. We have offices around the world, and we're really I would say, the largest company actively contributing to Postgres today. So that just a little bit about EDB, and then I mentioned the work that Gartner has done around the Magic Quadrant and Postgres' position in that Magic Quadrant. I want to just emphasize that a little bit, that the credit for this goes to Postgres. Yeah, some of it, some degree, to Enterprise DB for working with the Postgres community and providing some additional tooling and capabilities. But the important thing is that since Gartner restarted the Magic Quadrant in 2013, EDB and Postgres have been in the Magic Quadrant consistently. And one really, really important thing about this most recent Magic Quadrant is that EDB and Postgres are the only open source relational database left in the Magic Quadrant for relational databases today. If you page back, there were quite a few other ones in there, but over time it has become pretty clear that from a completeness of vision, which meaning the ability to provide everything that a company needs, from monitoring, high availability, containerization, backup recovery, integration, etc., that only Postgres, and especially EDB Postgres, has provided all the capabilities that are needed. And then the ability to execute really means, do you have enough large customers to prove that, yes, indeed, globally you can actually do this job? So that's one of the reasons why today only Postgres is left in the Magic Quadrant as an open source relational database. So EDB today has over 4,000 customers, and what's important is many of those are very large companies. I work with quite a few of them. Devrim works with quite a few of them. And they don't just use Postgres for little departmental solutions. They use Postgres for very large mission-critical solutions. This is just a small set of the customers that we can name publicly. If you're interested in case studies, come to our websites. It's described in great detail. And we're not just active commercially. As I mentioned, we're the largest company actively supporting PostgreSQL today. And these are the team members that we have, so the members on our staff who are named in the Postgres or PG admin communities today as active participants. So some of the core team, some as major contributors. So Devrim is one of those named on the Postgres website, and others just mentioned as contributors, but also still, very, very meaningful contributors to the work that Postgres is doing. We've also called out those that are committers today. So it's important to see that EDB has the balance of contributing to open source Postgres, but also doing a lot of commercial work to make sure that everything that Postgres users need to use Postgres successfully in the enterprise is there. We'll spend a little bit of time, we'll go back and forth between PostgreSQL, which a large number of our customers use the open source version of Postgres, and a significant number of the customers use Postgres Advanced Server. This is the only time I'll talk about this, just to mention that Postgres Advanced Server is a superset of PostgreSQL. It's a managed fork. All features of PostgreSQL are available in Advanced Server, but we've added some things that customers have asked for, like native PLSQL compatibility, lots of packages, query hints, Pragma autonomous transaction. So a lot of people coming from Oracle have asked for these capabilities. That's why we added that to PostgreSQL. A resource manager so that you can govern who consumes how many resources, better session and system weight diagnostics, faster loader, better auditing, etc. So the key message here is Advanced Server is a superset of PostgreSQL. A lot of customers use it because of that, because it makes migration from Oracle easier. A lot of customers are on straight Postgres. Okay, so at this point in time, before I turn it over to Devrim, Rachel's going to run a quick survey for us just to see who is interested in using which platform for their deployment. So if you could just use 10-20 seconds to fill this in. Give us some data. We'll share the data with you as it's coming in. Okay. How are we doing on that?
It's coming in.
Okay. And when you get the presentation afterwards, the slide will be filled in, and you'll get to see the data. But I think Rachel can also share it with us quickly as it stabilizes. Yeah, please.
There are the results.
Okay. So this is really interesting and is very, very much in line with what we're seeing with our customers. So we're seeing, in our standard customer base, around 5 to 10% are on Windows. And that's why we'll have a webinar like this in, I think, 4 weeks to talk about installation on Windows. But we see by far the larger number in our numbers, usually around 90%, that are on Linux, and RHEL 7, CentOS RHEL 7 being in the lead. We're seeing Debian becoming very, very popular, and obviously RHEL 6 falling behind. Okay, so thanks very much for sharing that. Now let me turn it over to Devrim.
Hello.
Hi, Devrim.
Hi. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Marc, and hi, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, Marc. So I'm Devrim. I'm responsible for the packaging at Enterprise DB and in the community. So I'm going to talk about today first why we started the native packaging and why we gave up installers recently. And then, as Marc mentioned, I'm going to walk through how we install both Advanced Server and Community Postgres on Red Hat and CentOS or Ubuntu and Debian. So let's start with why we are looking for why we gave up, why we dropped the actually one-click installers and switch to native packaging. So
and let me just interject here for the audience. I know we only have 10% who said, hey, we're going to install on Windows. On Windows, we're still supporting the one-click installer because that is the way one installs software there. But on Linux, last year we walked away from creating new one-click installers. Back to you, Devrim.
Thank you, Marc. So we had some issues with the installers. The first one was maintenance. Because in the installers, we had to use common libraries for all platforms. I mean, we used to have the same SSL library for Red Hat 6 and Ubuntu or Debian or Red Hat 7 or maybe Red Hat 8. So it was becoming a nightmare to maintain that one. So it also was another problem. We had a similar problem with LDAP as well. So the problem was they don't match the operating system libraries. So if you update the operating system, then you actually don't update the SSL library, for example, that the advanced server uses or Postgres uses. So that was a major problem for us. So each time you update an advanced server with installer, that may be just because of an SSL update. And then another problem was compatibility issues with the software that you are building against Postgres or advanced server, because the libraries that we depend don't match with the libraries on the operating system, and it caused lots of maintenance problems for us, and also linkage with the problem and the security updates as well. So another problem was the integration problem. Like if you are using one of the like DNF, YAM, APT, or Zipper, depending on the operating system that you are using, and Linux distribution that you are using, you had to run a separate update techniques and separate monitoring for updates for the installers. Because if you have monitoring for YAM, for example, that's fine. It picks up almost everything. But if you install advanced server or Postgres with the installer, then it was a problem. And one of the major problems was the performance problem, because we had to use the lowest common denominator for everything, for the libraries. As I told you in the very first slide, we had to use the same library for all the platforms. So we have to use probably the oldest libc library, older compiler versions, because we had to compile the same thing on Red Hat 6 as well and Red Hat 7 as well, or the Ubuntu 18. So that was a major problem for us. So then we started working on the native packaging, and we had a few targets. One of them was being as close as possible to the packaging guidelines. So for Red Hat or CentOS or Ubuntu and Debian, we had to stick to the packaging guidelines as much as possible. Of course, we had to change a few things because of installing multiple versions, but that's not that critical. And we also want to be close to the community packaging and their behavior, especially for the Ubuntu version. So if you are switching from the community Postgres to advanced server, we are using almost the same tools with just a little name changes, which I'm going to mention during the demo parts. And we try to also make things as consistent as possible between the RPMs and Debian packages, especially with the packaging names and etc. And of course, we want everything to be used as easier as possible. Just a few clicks, a few commands, get a username, password, and you're done. And then, of course, when we started using the native packaging, we solved a few problems. One of them was, as I told you in the few slides before, it was maintenance. And now we are using the operating system libraries, which is awesome. Because if there's a security issue in OpenSSL, for example, when you update OpenSSL, you are done, you are safe, because we always link to the latest ones or the updated ones. So there is no separate update requirements for the operating system. And then we can also compile the programs easily against advanced server, which is awesome, because we don't have to link to some random libraries which is not integrated in the operating system. So the third-party software now can work much more easier. And then we have better linking with libpq. From maintenance point of view, again, now we use the operating system package management tools like YAM, DNF, on APT, whatever. and then one monitoring platform for all packages. So you don't have to set up an extra monitoring for the installers from now on. Now we can integrate with Puppet, Chef, Satellite, or Ansible. So if you are using one of those tools or similar tools, you can just integrate advanced server to them and install advanced server or deploy your instances much more easier. And another benefit is actually now you can create feasible SE Linux policies. Actually, Enterprise DB and Community package are currently working on a new RPM, extra RPM, which will be publishing in the next few months, so that it creates some basic SE Linux policies for you, so you don't have to worry about the SE Linux thing on Red Hat and CentOS. So now it's possible, or let's say feasible, to run SE Linux with Postgres. So and then ease of use. As I told you, one of our targets was ease of use. So we made our both Debian packaging and the RPMs to work pretty much the same with the community packages. If you are familiar with the community RPMs or community Debian packages, we have more or less the same thing. And so we use the same tools with EDB prefixes or something. So for example, in Ubuntu or Debian, if you are using the community Postgres, we have PG-LS clusters or PG-create clusters, stuff like this. So in advanced server, there are EPS-LS clusters and EPS-create cluster. So the same tool with the same functionality with just a separate name. So switching from Postgres to advanced server is now much more easier for you. Or if you are using Red Hat and CentOS, then it's just it's PostgreSQL 11 setup versus EDB AS 11 setup. So the basic things are the same. Just the directory names are of course different, but the infrastructure is still the same. So and then now we have easy adoption to EDB packages. That's another ease of use. So and then update is easier. So another advantage is actually now we have PAM, BART, and EFM. So EDB tools are now natively packaged. In the past, we didn't have any installers for them. So if you are using Postgres advanced server with the installers, there was a few issues with using them altogether. So right now we solved all of those problems. We have everything on Debian as well and Ubuntu as well. So if you are using Ubuntu or Debian, you can just run apt install EFM, which I'm going to show you in the next few minutes, and then you will be installed EFM quite easily. And then ADB native packages integrate with these tools quite easily.
Let me just Devrim, let me just maybe if you go back one slide here, because we didn't spend much time on that. Basically, just to say that PEM is the Postgres Enterprise Manager. So that's a little bit like Oracle Enterprise Manager, so a tool to manage large deployments of Postgres all from one pane of glass. We have customers that go up to 1,000 database servers all managed from one PEM server. BART is the backup and recovery tool, so that provides incremental backup for Postgres, which is really interesting for customers who have over 1 terabyte of data, because a terabyte you can really not spool it off site anymore in 24 hours in most network configurations. And EFM is the high availability tool, so that uses underlying streaming replication, but combines that with monitoring and automatic failover or user-driven switchover to provide you a highly available Postgres database in case of a hardware disaster. Okay, so back to you, Devrim.
Thank you, Marc. And finally, we have the performance benefits, which is now we are using the operating system supplied compiler. Now we can benefit from the compiler optimizations that the operating system uses. So from performance point of view, the native packaging is much faster as compared to the installers. So actually, we tried to solve almost all of the problems that we had in the installers. So let's talk a bit about the native packaging of the community Postgres, which has been around in the last, I think, 15 years or so. So users of Windows and Mac will still use the one-click installers. because as Marc mentioned, that's the only way of having the having the installers. So for the community one, we have the Windows and Mac as a one-click installer. And the community Postgres repositories have already hundreds of thousands users already. So it's been there like for 15 years, an official repo. So if you are using the open source Postgres, it's still there. The APT repo have more than 100 packages. The RPM repos have more than 235 unique packages. I mean, when I say package, I mean it's like software. So if you are using Postgres, we also provide lots of software which is incompatible with, which works with Postgres. Like if you are taking backups, or if you are using some FTWs, foreign data wrappers, or if you are using other tools, that's all available for with the native packaging in both repositories. So when you go to postgresql.org/download, you will be directed from that page to the operating system that you are using. So currently we support these at the moment. Enterprise DB supports these. So we support Ubuntu 18.04, Debian 9, and of course we support Red Hat and CentOS 7. Red Hat 8 and CentOS 8 they are in work in progress right now. The community actually has some support right now, including the JS packages, but we are waiting for EPEL to be 100% stable. Actually, EPEL 8 is on their way, so it should be ready in the next few weeks or months. And we also support SUSE Enterprise Linux 12 until SP3. Due to some technical limitations of SUSE, we don't support SP4 right now. For 15, it's not been confirmed yet, so we are not sure whether we will support SUSE 15. But right now we have Ubuntu 18, Debian 9, Red Hat 7, and SUSE 12 for the platforms.
Yeah, and then let's just add. So Devrim, what are we doing for RHEL 6? I believe we also still support RHEL 6, right?
That's right. That's the typo. I mean, I forgot that one. That's right. And we also have Red Hat 6 as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and then a smaller install base, but very important, is IBM Linux on Power. That's also supported. So again, in the version 7. Okay.
Yeah. And also for the community one, we also support Fedora. I mean, we don't support product. I mean, we provide all the RPMs, but we don't suggest our user base to use Fedora on the server deployments anyway. In order to install advanced server RPMs, you have to have a repository access. Means you need a username and password over there. So before we go there, I'm going to just give you a quick information about what needs to be done over here. So both EDB RPMs and Debian repositories require a valid username and password, and you can obtain it from enterprisedb.com online, which we will do right now. And you'll just need to log in and click. You'll click a link, and then you will need to you will have a username and password. So I'm going to show you. How this is done. So actually, this is the EnterpriseDB website. I just logged in over there. So let's go to download software. I'm sorry. I need to log in again first. So once you log in, if you follow the link to download software, you will see is mentioned in the slides. If you go to advanced downloads in here, then you can see the links in here. So let's start with version 11. Actually, it doesn't matter. So when you get a username and password, it's going to be valid for all RPMs and all Debian packages. So we have one single username and password over here. So let's click access repository in here and wait for a while. Because now your username and password will be generated, and it will be available in your account as well. So once you do this, right, now we have our trials in here. So as you can see, it gives you a username and the password in here. So if you want to view the password, now we have a username and password in here that we can use in the next few slides. So so in this case, in this step, please make sure that you copy the username and password that's been provided to you, because we will need it in the next few steps. So now I want to do a step-by-step demo on installing Advanced Server and Postgres, commit Postgres on CentOS and Rahel. In this case, actually, it doesn't matter if you are using Red Hat 6 or Red Hat 7 or Red Hat 8 in the future. The procedure is the same. All you need to do, just do the same thing on all the operating systems. I mean, on Red Hat 6 or Red Hat 7 or Red Hat 8, and they will work with the same way. So from Enterprise DB point of view, as we mentioned earlier, you need a username and password, the ones that we just noted down in the previous step. In the commit repo, you don't need any username and password. It's all available to the public. And once you have this, you will need the repo RPM. This is the best and awesome and easy way of configuring everything on Red Hat and CentOS, because when we have the repo RPM, it actually simplifies stuff for us, and when you get an update, it's going to be easier for you. Then we are going to walk through installing Advanced Server on Red Hat and installing committed Postgres on CentOS. And then finally, I'm going to show you what to do if you cannot access the EDB YAM repo from the database server. Like if you have a closed network on your environment, then we have an infrastructure for you with the Advanced Server RPMs that will allow you to install the packages offline. So let's start with the EDB repo RPM. So basically, everything is under yam.enterprisedb.com. So let's go to the yam.enterprisedb.com website. It's in here. So as you can see, we have one single RPM, which is called EDB repo. So all you need to do is just copying the link. I'm sorry. I just copied the link, and now I'm going to log into my Red Hat instance and run yam install and the link. So actually, this now installed just repo RPM. Because there is some confusion in the field, assuming that this is all you need to do. No, this is just one single file and one single repo file and the signature, the RPM signature for your security, that you can use to control which packages that you want to use. So like all the repository files, they are under the same directory, which is etc/yam.repos.d directory. So as you can see, we have already the CentOS packages in here, an EPAL repo in here, and then finally we have the EDB repo in here. So every file in here must end with .repo name. So this is the repo file. As you can see in here, just a second, please. Yeah, as you can see in here, it's enabled equals to 0, means this repo is not enabled. This behavior is going to change soon, that we will enable all the repo, all the packages, all the repositories in the next few weeks. So if you want to install Postgres 11, you need to enable that repo. Or if you want to install Postgres 10 at the same time, then you have to enable that repo as well. So the first step is actually enabling the repos. And we also have some separate repos for the dependencies. Like then you have to also enable the Enterprise DB dependencies repo, and then finally you have to enable the Enterprise DB tools repo. So basically, if you want to install Postgres 11, you have to enable EDBS 11 repo. this is the repo name, and this enabled equals to 1. And then enable the tools repo for our tools like JDBC, and then for the dependencies that we have, that's the dependencies repo. So this is what you need to do. So if you, for example, if you want to install Postgres, I'm sorry, Advanced Server again 9.6 as well for some reason, then you have to enable this one as well. Okay. So in this demo, I'm going to first disable EDB AS10 just to show you that you cannot install Advanced Server 10 without enabling the repo. Okay, that was the first thing. The second thing is, as you can see in here, we have the username and the password combination. So this is the part that we will update in the repo RPM to set the username and password that we just got while registering to the while accessing to the repository at enterprisedb.com. So let's go back to here. Copy the password first, and then do a search and replace. So I'm going to change the password with, I'm changing the password with the password that we got in here. Sorry. And then the username. So basically, now we have the username and password authentication for advanced enterprise DB repositories. So now actually we are ready. We are ready to install Advanced Server. So let's try. So yum install EDB AS11. Looks like I made a typo in here. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Now it's going to update the metadata cache for the repositories that we enabled. Okay. When you say yes, it will download the packages and then install. So this is how we actually first install Advanced Server RPM. So installing them is the first step. Actually, we have a few more steps to use them. So let's import the key first from Fedora EPEL repo. By the way, this is a pretty much minimal CentOS 7 instance, the latest version. I mean 7.6 instance in this case. So that's why it's pulling a lot of dependencies like Perl and etc. So then we are done actually. So what does this command do? Actually, this is a magic package which downloads lots of EDB RPMs for you. So in this case, we had the EDB Plus, our EDB Plus product, PG Agent for Advanced Server, PG Pool for the load balancing and connection pooling, PG SNMP daemon for Advanced Server. And we have the client package, clone schema, and our modules, Index Advisor, like Parallel Clone, PL Debugger, SQL Profiler, SQL Protect, and SSL utils and the Selenium replication. So actually we have not all of them, but the major of them for running an advanced server. Okay, so so if you are not sure about which package that you are looking for, you can use yum search. So yum search EDB is going to give you all the packages that starts with EDB. So as you can see in the list, that we have some other packages like EDB PAM or EDB FM, packages like this in here. So we will install other stuff later on. So once you install EDB Advanced Server, everything will be installed under USR EDB AS11 directory. So when I say everything, I'm talking about the binaries, libraries, and the include files. This is the main installation part. So, however, on the other hand, if you go to varlib edb directory, then you are going to see the AS11 directory, AS11 directory, and the data directory as well. Right now, the data directory is empty because we have to run initdb. This is what has been explained in the Postgres documentation in the last 30 years. So we are 25 years anyway. So whatever. So we have to run initdb. So there are two ways of running in initdb. You can either run the initdb command by yourself, or much better, you can use the AS11 bin R setup script, which has been provided for you. So this is a very basic shell script, and right now it only supports initdb for advanced server. So you can just run initdb, give initdb as a parameter, and then advanced server is going to run the initdb for you. On the other hand, it also gives you an option for specifying some initdb options. For example, if you want to enable data checksums with advanced server just before running the initdb, you can just simply export so basically this comes from here. So if you want to give anything in here, like as you can see in here, the dash cape enables the data checksums on the instance. So if you export this parameter, then you run our script again, not again for the first time anyway. It's going to initialize the database for you with checksums enabled. So if you run the same script again, it's not going to do anything. So there is no harm for doing more than one time, because if there's something over there, it's going to throw an error first and exit the script. So you are safe in this case. So let's go to the enterprise DB user. That's the operating system user. Right now we have everything. I mean, everything in the data directory. So this is how we initialize the cluster. So for the final step, you need to start. You can start advanced server. So systemctl, you can either say this command, which means enable advanced server 11 even after you reboot your Linux machine, or let's disable it first to see the. Let's disable it first. Or you can say -- now means enable and then start. So you don't have to actually run two commands like enable and start at the same time. Let's make sure that it works. Switch to enterprise DB user. So now we connected to the Postgres database with enterprise DB user, which is our super user. Now we have the basic databases and etc. So this is how you install advanced server 11 on Red Hat and CentOS. Right now, I want to show you how to install one of our tools, which is EDB EFM, which is our failover manager. So we are going to use the latest version, which is 3.6. So if you say yum install edb-efm 36, means it's going to install version 3.6. It's going to download and install. As you can see, once you enable the repos, then you can keep downloading everything for you. So what happens if you want to install multiple versions of advanced server on the same machine? So as I told you earlier, edb s10 is the command actually you want to use, but it won't work because we didn't enable the repo yet. So let's go to the edb repo file. enable the repo and run the same command again. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the this extra addition here. See, so so we have the same thing. Just enable the repo that you want, and then you will get the packages. So that's the only step they do for you to install advanced server. If you want to update in the future, like if you want to update from, let's say, 11.5 to 11.6, when 11.6 will released, just run yum update, because yum update is going to just pick up everything from enterprise DB repositories and update your system. One thing that you should consider, that all the updates are followed by a restart process, and it doesn't ask you whether you want to restart or not. So when you update your advanced server RPMs, make sure, and actually in the Postgres RPMs as well, make sure that you are doing the upgrade in a downtime period, because it's going to restart your database for the new settings to, for the new RPMs to be usable. So this is how we installed advanced server 11 and 10 to Red Hat 7. Now I'm going to show you how to install community Postgres. As I told you earlier, the community Postgres actually doesn't require any username and password. So if you go to yum.postgresql.org, and if you go to yum repo RPMs, now just all you need to do is just find your distribution and install the repository RPM. So right now in this case, since we are running everything on CentOS 7, right click, copy the link location, and then yum install this. Okay, so this is repo RPM again. Not unlike the, I mean, just like the EDB repo that we installed. However, there's a just a little difference, which is in here every repo is enabled except version 12, because version 12 is not stable yet. So once it reaches the stable, once we release the 12.0, then we will enable the update repo RPM and enable it by default. And as you can see in here, 11 or say 9.6 or whatever, they are all enabled. So you can install the community RPMs just a little bit easier as compared to the advanced server RPMs. I mean, just username and password. The only thing that you should know, the community repo or also have a testing repo. So if you want to test out some new RPMs which didn't hit the stable repos, like version 12 maybe, or some new packages, if you want to use the latest version of something, then you can use the testing repo. But this is not supported either by enterprise DB or by the community. This is, I mean, just if you want to use them, it's just your risk. So yum install. So if you run yum install PostgreSQL 11 server and 11 country, for example, I just picked up just two packages for you, then you installed those to your system. Or if you want to look for more RPMs, say PostgreSQL 11, then actually we have more RPMs. On the other hand, as I told you earlier, if you want to use some other packages like pgadmin, it's also available in our packages as well. Or if you wanna search for Postgres 2.5 packages, they're also available in the community repo, like the advanced server repo. So in this case, since we installed everything with the just the RPMs, this is the script that you have to use. Just like the ADB RPMs, in the community RPMs we have a script, and it runs in DB for you. Again, like the advanced server RPMs, you can just export the PG setup initdb options environment variable, and then just make some changes to the initdb as well. So systemctl enable dash now PostgreSQL 11. And now we connected to Postgres. So as you can see in here, you can actually use both of them on the same machine. So right now we have EPS 11, EPS 10, and PostgreSQL 11 running on the same machine without any problems. The only thing that you should make sure that they are not using the same port number. So this is how we install Postgres on CentOS. So one thing that I want to mention you, I want to talk about the advanced server RPMs is if you have, as I told you, we also have a solution for the users who do not have network access on the database machine. So if you go to again enterprisedb.com, in let's say for version 11, which is the default one at this point, as you can see, we have the tarballs in here. So for example, this is a tarball for Red Hat or CentOS 7.x or PPC LE for Red Hat 7 or Red Hat 6 as well. So we have both in here. So you can actually get the tarball of 3 of them and download them and install it to your database machine. The only thing that you should consider, you have to also download the dependencies. As you saw in a few minutes ago, we also pull lots of dependencies for the RPMs to work. This may be a Perl package. This may be a ICU package. This may be an XSLT package. So there are some multiple RPMs, multiple packages for the dependencies. In this case, you have to make sure that dependencies must be downloaded. So if you don't download, that's fine, because YAM is going to throw an error. So I want to move to the Ubuntu and Debian installation because
Debian,
yeah.
For the sake of time, we're down to 12 minutes. I suggest maybe just do the PostgreSQL version for Debian. Do it quickly so that we have a few minutes left for questions because there's a whole bunch that the audience brought in.
Okay, sorry about that. So if you go to apt.postgresql.org, it's going to actually installing it's like the repo RPMs. They don't have the repo RPMs, but there's a pretty much single command that you can just copy and paste in here. So if you can copy and paste just this one into the Ubuntu machine, then run apt-get updates as usual. Then apt-get PostgreSQL 11. So now you can install PostgreSQL quite easily. The major difference between the RPMs and Debian packages are Debian packages actually run the initdb for you. So you don't, unlike the RPMs, you don't have to run an extra script for running initdb. And you don't need to bother about this red line because it doesn't run, of course, by default, and it starts everything afterwards. So if you go to Postgres user, and then you are done. So actually installing things on Debian is just a bit easier as compared to the RPMs. But this is by design. I'm not going to favor any of them. I built both. So that's how we install Postgres on the advanced server. So it's like the RPM. I'm sorry. Let me just show you the web page. I know we are almost out of time. But if you go to apt.enterprisedb.com, you are going to see similar instructions for you. The only thing is you need to replace the username and password in here, and you are done. So you can install advanced server like the same way that you install Postgres with the RPMs and etc. So they are the same. They are the same, but with the different package names. I think I'm done for now.
Okay,
Marc.
thank you, Devrim. So let's dive into questions here. I know that quite a few came in. Rachel, can you?
Yep, thank you very much. To Marc and Devrim, we do have a number of questions here before we conclude today's session. The first question is, how can you install 2 Postgres instances using 2 different users and 2 different ports on one host?
I think Devrim Devrim, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I covered this, but for example, if you go to the Enterprise DB user in here, I'm sorry, Enterprise DB user. So if you go to AS10 directory and go to data directory and change the port number, for example.
So I think Devrim, your screen is no longer being shared. So, but the key thing is really they're being automatically installed in different directories, right?
Yeah.
And they're running on, by default, same IP address but different port. So what you would do is you would, for example, install, I don't know, Postgres 10 under port 5431, Postgres 11 under port 5432. And that's all you need to do.
Right. Or you can assign multiple IP addresses to the same instance, the same server, and then make sure that advanced server Postgres listens to just one of them. That's another solution if you want to use the same port number.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Next question. Is EDB Advanced Server supported on AWS Linux AMI?
Yes.
Great. Does initdb need to be run as a root user?
Actually, that's a tricky question because we are running a script, and that script must be run with root user. But if you wanna use initdb directly by yourself, I'm talking about the command provided by the RPMs. Then you cannot actually run everything with run that one with the root user because that will be disallowed for security reasons. So yes, you have to run you have to run the script with the root user.
Okay, so initdb and system control has to be run as a root user.
That's right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Does initdb allow us to create cluster in custom directory?
Yes. Actually, that's the part that the script is actually useful. So you have to, for example, on the Reddit, you just create a new unit file. You can just copy our unit file, change the data directory over there, and run the script. Then now the script is going to read the data directory from the unit file, and then actually create everything in a custom location.
Great. Thank you. We have 2 very similar questions. What happens when software demo time limit expires, and what will happen to the installation after the evaluation period expires?
Okay. So basically, the software is not limited, meaning technically it will continue running. However, you would be in breach of the license agreement at that point in time, because when you get your EDB account, you agree to use the trial licenses for 60 days. If you need to use the trial licenses longer, just contact us at info@enterprisedb.com, and we'll work with you for an extended trial. But you cannot use the EDB Postgres Advanced Server software for longer than the 60 days of the trial period without getting a license agreement. Your download capability will also end after 60 days. So by default, after 60 days, you can't get updates anymore. So, technically, you also shouldn't be running software that cannot be updated.
Great. Thank you. How do you change the default location for the install?
You can't. I mean, if you're talking about the binaries and libraries, you cannot. But if you want to change the data location, then I answered the same question in the previous one. Just create a copy of the unit file, and you can change the data directory. But you cannot change the binaries and libraries because of the RPM packaging policies. They are not relocatable.
Thank you. Any best practice for database file separation?
I couldn't understand the question actually.
Well, I mean, do you put the data directory? I mean, usually what we recommend is to put the data directory in a separate place than the actual binaries, and the WAL files should also be in a different directory. Ideally, all three should have a different mount point, and for highest performance, it should be a different controller that is being used for the data directory and for the WAL files. But that obviously means in a SAN environment, you don't necessarily have that kind of control, but that's what we're recommending to make sure that the I/O gets well spread.
Yeah. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you. What version of Postgres does PL/SQL support start at?
PL/SQL support has been on the EDB Advanced Server for a long time, since 8 dot something. If you're looking into it, I would highly recommend to use Advanced Server 11, because that's where we introduced things like Pragma Autonomous Transaction, which used to be one of the hardest nuts to crack when you came from Oracle.
Thank you. We are using a Debian 7. Must we upgrade to Debian 9 to install version 11.5?
For Advanced Server, yes.
Okay. Thank you. How can you update minor versions if there is no internet connection from Linux server?
The same thing, just go to the Yum website, download the tarball, because tarball is updated on every in a new release, and then run yum local install with the RPMs.
Great.
So just
Thank you.
download the new tarball.
Okay, thanks, Devrim. I think we have time for just one more question. Do you have a template for creating system control scripts if I'd like to run 2 Postgres clusters on one host?
The unit file is actually a template, and actually on the top of unit file there is an instruction of how to do this. So the unit file actually includes the documentation about how to do this.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Devrim. I apologize for those questions that we were unable to get to today, but that is all of the time that we have. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for the webinar. We will be sharing this recording along with the slides with you as soon as possible. Thanks again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.